Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Power of Storytelling. My name is Erica, and if you haven't met me already, I am one of the coordinators of the National Engineering Month campaign in Ontario, along with my team members Becky and Jonathan. We are very lucky this week for our webinar. We have a guest speaker. We have talked about storytelling sort of an amateurish way, talking about the fact that we want you not just to relate stories about math and science themselves or facts, but also to get into speaking a little bit about yourself and your backstory and what's interesting to you and maybe some things that have happened to you. Because whether you're an engineer or a technologist or a technician or a student in one of those fields, when you get up in front of a crowd during National Engineering Month, you're a role model and you can inspire them, not by your flawless knowledge, which is obviously impressive, but with stories about your humanity. And so we have someone this week who is very qualified to speak about storytelling. Her name is Erin, and here she is. I'm going to let her chat a little bit more about why, as a non-engineer technologist person, she was interested in working with us and why she has joined us for National Engineering Month 2017 for the first time as an organizer. She's going to be doing a storytelling event on March 22nd this year, and so if you're in the Toronto area, we hope that you'll look it up and possibly attend, and we can chat a little bit more about that. But a bit more about Erin. She started as a stand-up comedian. She's done all kinds of different types of performing around storytelling. She's a member of the storytelling community. She has worked on the Storytelling Festival in Toronto, which is a really big one. Who knew? And she does these storytelling events called Story Stars. So definitely look at those if you're interested, if you're in and around the Toronto area. And she's also a storytelling coach. So that is the capacity that she's talking to us today as organizers. This is something that some people do very naturally. They know how to tell a story. They know how to captivate the audience and make it interesting and make it stick. Other people need a little bit more help. The rest of us could use a few tips on how to tell a really effective and captivating story. So without any further ado, Erin, I'm going to turn it over to you. She's going to give us, I think, about half an hour of content, and then we're going to open up the line for questions. So thanks, everybody on the line today for joining us live. And if you're watching this on the replay, you are welcome to contact Erin to follow up as well. So over to you, Erin. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Erica. So appreciated. So what brought me to you is a few years ago, I was out and about, and I was walking down a street, and I saw some light coming from a building that I had never seen before, and I heard a lot of sound, and I heard some music. And as someone who can't resist an adventure, I walked towards the space, I knocked on the door, and I came upon a makerspace. And so basically for 2 years, I spent time learning things that I had never learned before, finding out things that I had never found out before. It was as if I'd found a portal to another world because, as Erica mentioned, I'm a stand-up. I really liked writing poems in high school. Math and science were basically a mystery to me. And then I found this space where people were taking all these wonderful things that I had never heard of and making them into realities. I made a giant fire gun with a friend. I learned to solder. I learned all these wonderful things. And the other thing I learned was how incredible and inspiring this work was, and how all of these different folks I met, engineers, technologists, people with positions I had never heard of before, were changing the world. And they all had these amazing stories. And so the chance to bring those two things together, my love of stories and this whole new world I had discovered, brought me to you folks. So I'm so excited to be talking to you. And I'm gonna start this off with Erica was saying that there are people that are natural storytellers and there's people that need a little bit of help. And I will say everyone can tell a story, and everyone can learn a few more tips to make themselves a better storyteller naturally. So I'm going to take you through a bunch of tips to just turn you into the storytelling star that you are meant to be. So Whoops, sorry, let me just go to the next slide. Here we go. So here's our agenda today. We're going to go through kind of some definitions. We're going to talk over a few tips that will make you a better storyteller. And I'm going to leave you by the end of this webinar with some tools that if you just use these tools automatically, whether it's in a presentation, whether it's performing at a storytelling show, which I highly recommend. I may be a little biased as I run one. Or if you're just telling a story with friends at a bar or maybe at a family reunion, you're automatically going to be a better storyteller just using these simple tips. So why stories? Why are stories a great way to present something? Well, first, stories just stick. Facts are great. I love facts. Honestly, I'm a big nerd and I love collecting information. But the things that stick with people and the things that inspire people are the stories. Think of a favorite teacher that you had as a child. Usually they will have some kind of story that they told you that you hang on to and it inspires you forward. These kind of stories are what change people's lives, what connect them. They're the stories that people remember, that they tell other people. They spread. And so when you use a storytelling structure in a presentation, you're automatically just going to connect to an audience in a different way. So science also proves this. So for example, the London School of Business did some research and found that 65 to 70% of information from stories is retained. And that's compared to 5 to 10% from simple data. So the fact is, you've put all the work into doing an event. Telling a story is going to make it stick with people. Stories are a great way to inspire people, and they're a great way to connect with your audience. They're just a magical, magical art form. You already know all the great engineering and technology information. You've put a lot of work into this stuff. You're already an expert at this. The stories are going to help you connect emotionally to people and inspire them. They've already seen how incredible you are and how hardworking you are. They're also going to see you as a full person. And automatically, when people see someone on a stage or presenting or telling a story, they connect and see themselves in you when you tell a story. So instead of being separated and feeling like I can never be like that person, suddenly they're connected because they've seen all the parts of your personality and all the parts of your humanity through these stories. So stories show people what they can be, and they connect you to them and show the amazing things that can be done in their lives. So what is a story? Whoops, pardon me. What is a story or storytelling? So storytelling is looking at a snapshot of someone's life. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. It's giving someone like a real overview of something important. And it's getting rid of all the unnecessary details. So for example, when you watch a movie trailer, you don't see all the details of everything that has ever happened in that experience. You see the most important things. A story is like a movie trailer. It gives you the most exciting things. It teaches you something usually, and you leave excited. And that's what a story is. A story also has a protagonist who drives the experience. So in the case of a story that you're telling, you're the protagonist, and everything is felt through you. You're the person that's taking action and making decisions. The elements of a great story. So every story has very specific elements. One, there's characters. So that's you and anybody else involved in the story, perhaps the team in your event, people you met in your past, etc. The plot. And the plot is the events that happen in your story and your experience. Now, it's really important to notice, and I'm going to underline this, that plot is much less important than emotions and point of view. The things that happen in a story are basically kind of the underpinning of what people are most interested in. So for example, I could tell you a story about when I went to the store and I got a sandwich, and if I put in my emotions and it's something very important to me, if that sandwich was the difference between me maybe connecting with someone, I can bring them that sandwich and our friendship will be sealed. That gives that high stakes and it makes it interesting. Now suddenly a story about a sandwich, which sounds originally pretty boring, it's something that the audience will connect to. They're excited. They want to know why it's important to you. So really the emotions are the most important thing rather than the specific details of everything that happened. The setting, and that's where your story took place, where it was, the year it was, etc. The conflict. Now this is where a lot of people get stuck. The conflict isn't a fight with someone. It doesn't have to be a story where two people get into an argument. The conflict is, what is the problem that the story solves? So for example, if it's a story about when you didn't think you belonged and then you found a place of belonging, that's the conflict that the story solves. You took some actions, you made some choices, and then you found a place of belonging. That's also a very powerful story. And then the last is your point of view. So how did you feel during this time? What inspired you, etc. So the stories that you tell at an event, they help to underline and introduce what you're talking about at the event. They help inspire. They're going to help you connect with the audience. So automatically, I'm giving you this tool to take all the wonderful things that you're going to introduce the audience to and kind of narrowing them down into a simple presentation. So for every story, there is going to be a hero. And if you're telling a story, you're the hero of that story. Why is the story important? It has to just be important to you. As I said earlier, it can be anything. It can be a story of when you were a small child and you wanted something. Now as an adult, that thing might not seem as important, but it was very, very important to you at the time. And that's what's the most important thing of the story, and that's what will connect the audience to you and to the story. Everyone, no matter who they are, has had an experience of when they wanted something very badly, when they had to deal with difficult situations. Automatically everyone will connect to that. The most important part of the story for you is going to be the climax. So when did you feel a belief shift or a part of your personality changing or a major part of your life changing? That is the climax of the story. That's the most important thing. The climax might be different for different people, but what is the most important part of the story for you? That's a thing that you should focus on, because that is going to be the kind of hero moment of the story. So as an audience, we're going to experience the story as you. So scientists have done studies and discovered that when someone is listening to a story, the mirror neurons in their brain are actually connecting to the story. So if I tell a story about drinking a cup of coffee and I explain how it tastes and how it smells, those parts of the listeners' brains would actually light up as if they were experiencing the story themselves. So when you give the audience your thoughts, beliefs, etc., they're going to experience that story, and it's going to be more important and exciting for them. The last thing is to eliminate unnecessary thought. So if there's details that don't advance the story, you can let them go. Sometimes people get really stuck on wanting to tell the truth of a story, and that's very important. You're not going to lie to anyone. But the fact that before you went to the class that changed your life, you stopped and you bought a coffee, and then you drank the coffee, and then you threw the coffee cup in the garbage, that's not important, because it's a story of going to the class that changed your life. Some things that will help automatically make a story very strong and very memorable is focusing on your 5 senses. So we all know the 5 senses: sight, smell, taste, sound, and touch. Those are the outward experience that people have, your inward experience made outward, so everyone can hear it and experience it. You can also use those sense experiences to prove the feelings and the experiences you are having. So for example, if in your story you're talking about someone being nervous, you can use sight to prove that he was nervous. So instead of saying, I saw Bill, he was nervous, he was dripping sweat, 1, gives a visual image, and 2, proves, without just having to say it, how Bill felt. It's more effective, and it helps you connect with the audience more. The more sense details you can put in the story, the more effective it will be, and the more it will stick with people. And, as we said before, the more information will stay with them in the long term. The awesome is in the details. This is something I tell my clients all the time. Specifics make a story come to life. Specific little details make something more interesting. So if I told you that something was a cup of coffee rather than a dark roast that's rich and aromatic and delicious, those are 2 very different images. And honestly, which are you more interested in? A coffee or a rich, dark roast, aromatic coffee? This automatically gives interest to your story, and it gives everyone an image in their mind's eye. Specifics also stop an audience from being distracted when they're trying to figure out the details of your story. So if you, for example, described going into a classroom, I've seen infinite classrooms in my life, and I might go and just cycle through what the classroom is you're talking about. Suddenly, I've totally lost the train of your story because I've been trying to figure out which classroom it was, and maybe as more details come out, I've been switching it in my mind. So if you can give some specifics to the audience, that'll help them. So for example, a classroom could be anything, but a drab, airless classroom, that gives me a very good and simple image. To give details to your audience, here are 3 questions you should ask yourself. How did I feel in my body? How did I feel in my mind? How did I feel with my emotions? So if you're nervous and your stomach is clenching with anxiety, that's a great specific detail. In your mind, maybe you're having an internal argument. Do I fit in here? Am I misjudging? Those are interesting details to give to an audience. Have I found my place? Is this the best day of my life? All of these internal arguments, all these internal discussions that we have help build the story. Now, I'm going to repeat this because this is a thing I always tell my clients. If there's unnecessary details, you just get rid of them. Focus on the important details and build those out. And if the detail doesn't move the story forward, you can just cut it out. Story structure. Now, as I mentioned before, story structure or story plot isn't actually as important as emotions and feelings, etc., inside and outside of your body. But here are 3 simple questions that will help you with structure. First of all, what was that most important moment that we talked about earlier, the climax of the story? So, for example, maybe it was when you realized that being a technologist was the job for you. It was the calling that you'd been waiting for. That's your climax. That's a very exciting moment that maybe changed the course of your life. Here are the 3 questions now that you've found your climax. Who were you before the experience? How did you feel during the experience? In that climax, how did you feel? What was your experience in your body? How did you emotionally feel? What were your thoughts? And then how were you or your work changed after the experience? What story should you tell? So one of the most important things is that the story should be important to you. If it's a story that you've told before, if it's a story that you tell friends, that's a great one. It should be something that's fun to tell. Here are some examples. When was a time I was most inspired? When was a time I had a eureka moment? When was a time I made a difference? When was a time I felt very nervous about a problem but tried something anyways? These 4 examples are great and inspiring stories, and stories that an audience will connect with, no matter who they are, because everyone has had a moment when they were super nervous and they made a big choice, or when they were inspired. Those are human stories and stories that anyone of any age will connect with. So here are some tips that will make you a next level storyteller. First one seems a little bit obvious, but it will make a night and day difference, I promise you. Rehearse your story with a friend. Now, rehearsing by yourself is an important part as well, and a lot of people rehearse in front of a mirror, but rehearsing with a friend is very, very helpful. I highly recommend getting someone to sit with you, just telling them to listen to your story, not interrupt, and ask questions afterwards. Ask your friend after you've told the story if there's any part that they didn't understand, if there's some details that you should make more clear, some details you should add, or anything that wasn't necessary in the story. Make sure to avoid jargon and acronyms. I just realized not that long ago that JK means just kidding. I do a lot of work with little kids, and I actually thought they were talking about Harry Potter, and it was pretty embarrassing. So not everyone, no matter who you are, and even if they do the same work as you, etc., not everyone knows all the jargon and acronyms. Keep it simple, and that stops you from losing the audience as they're trying desperately to figure out what that short form meant. And one of the most important things when you're presenting is to connect with the audience. Now, some of you might be nervous. I have a lot of anxiety before I perform. I've been doing this for over 10 years, and I still find myself quite anxious and nervous. I find automatically, as soon as I am on stage, if I connect with an audience member, if I make eye contact, and I make sure to take a deep breath, suddenly I already am connecting with the audience. All you need to really do is make eye contact with people and speak clearly, and suddenly that's the way humans are programmed. We're programmed to make eye contact. We're programmed to support each other in that way. Suddenly you'll be connecting with an audience. 3 to 5 minutes is a magic number. Avoid stories that go over 5 minutes. Attention spans are short, and do yourself and your audience a favor. Keep it simple, keep it clear. 3 to 5 minutes will just breeze by, make the audience excited, and keep the story with them. Here's a few other tips that I didn't include in the presentation that I find very, very helpful. If you're nervous before your presentation, take 3 deep breaths and say, I am excited, or I'm excited. This has actually been scientifically proven to be a really effective way to change all the brain hormones and chemicals from anxiety into actual excitement. It sounds a little bit silly, but it works. So that's take 3 deep breaths. 1, 2, 3, and then, and in an excited tone of voice, say, I'm excited. Another one that's very helpful, and this has actually been in a TED Talk, is to do some power poses. Stand really tall, and you can put your hands at your hips and pretend you're a superhero. Breathe deeply and picture yourself presenting. Now, if standing with your hands on your hips feels a little bit goofy, one, you can go to the bathroom so no one sees you, or two, you can just stand tall and breathe slowly. It's very, very effective. Also, I highly recommend, if you're very nervous, text a friend. Get them to tell you you're going to do a good job. It's very, very helpful to have that support. That's all for me. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, I'd love to take them. I'm so excited for all of you. I'm so excited, I'm so excited, I'm so excited for all of you to be doing presentations, to be connecting with your audience in a new way. You already do wonderful and incredible work, and I'm very excited for them to see you as a full, wonderful person just like them, and to be inspired to be the next you, or perhaps to work with you. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Well, that's great, Erin. Thank you so much. As you can see, Erin's enthusiasm is contagious. You can see what makes her such a great storyteller, and I hope that a lot of you have been able to absorb and connect with at least a couple of the tips that she presented. If you're feeling like there's quite a lot to do, I would recommend just focus in on a couple of strategies or a couple of things that you can put into your storytelling. I know I'm definitely reflecting a little bit on a couple of the anecdotes that I like to tell when I'm standing in front of kids talking about my journey to becoming an engineer and some of the key aha moments that I had as a young girl, and then later in high school, and then later as an engineering student. I certainly will take some of the tips that you've given us to try to punch a little more life and a little more inspiration into those stories. So I think one thing I'd like everyone to be aware of before we stop the recording is that Erin has prepared a little something special for National Engineering Month organizers that we will make available on our website. I think we're also going to email a copy of it to the folks on this list, on our distribution list of National Engineering Month Ontario organizers. So Erin, do you just want to explain what that is a little bit, the special thing that you've prepared for NEM people?
Sure. So what I'm going to do is give you like a one-pager that basically has some simple tips that are going to make you automatically an effective and wonderful storyteller. It's a one-page that has some questions and some tools that will help you to build your story and make it more effective and more fun to tell.
Beautiful. So thank you so much, Erin, for taking the time to craft something that will be especially helpful to us as engineers and technicians and technologists. I know we spend a lot of time focusing on facts and analyzing things and problem solving and making them work better, and we don't necessarily take the time to step back and tell a story. And I think that is, NEM is a perfect opportunity to do that. We step back, we reflect, we take time to explain things to the folks that we don't usually deal with in our day-to-day lives, but whose lives are very affected by our work. You know, there really isn't anything around us that isn't touched by engineering and technology in some way. And as we've discussed in former National Engineering Month campaigns, I think it's very easy for us to focus on the technology and to talk about bridges and to talk about smartphones and to talk about the gadgets that come out of the work that we do. And something that we've been working to do in the last couple National Engineering Month campaigns is to shift our strategy. Not that the technology isn't great, we love to talk about that, but we also want to talk about the people behind it. What makes them tick? What are their values? What are their emotions? What are the types of things they enjoy doing? And we have some prompts and some other material for you to consider in the form of the messaging strategy that we have that talks about how engineers and technologists use creativity and imagination to turn ideas into reality. Think of a time when you turned an idea into reality. What specifically happened, and how could you use some of Erin's tips to make that into a story that you could tell in front of a group of people? Or make it into a video and present it online. I mean, there really are a lot of creative possibilities with these storytelling tools. I think that's all I wanted to highlight. So thank you again, Erin. Is there anything you want to say before I turn off the recording?
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. And also, I'm so excited to hear people's experiences with their events and with their stories. I think one of the things to remember is that all of you are taking a chance, and taking a chance is where magic happens. All the apps and the technology that Erica was talking about are because someone took a chance and did something different, and storytelling is just another tool to do that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Erin.